What kind of situation is Embiid in where he can have this amazing season and no... Let's play a fun little game. I'm going to give you two players, and one of these players were in fact an all-star starter while the other was not. Player A this season is averaging about 31 points per game while shooting about 47% from the field, which is definitely a good season. However, what about player B? Player B is averaging about 33 points per game while shooting 7% better from the field. Oh, and he's damn near averaging a double-double. And yet, player A is not only an all-star starter over him, but he's also in the MVP conversation a lot more. Player A is Jason Tatum, which I'd argue is having his best season in his career so far, and yet player B is Joel Embiid. Now, this isn't no hate to Jason Tatum. I think he's a great player again, but Joel Embiid is having a better season, and it's not close. Yet, somehow Jason Tatum was a starter over him, but yet that's not the only thing I want to talk about, because some people did bring up the fact that all-star starters really don't matter. At the end of the day, you were a selection. And trust me, if I was going to make a full video about Joel Embiid being not an all-star starter, I don't think I could really do that. That's more of a short form type of video. However, I don't want to talk about just this. I do want to use this to push my case that Joel Embiid is one of the most disrespected, if not the most disrespected superstar in the NBA. And it's not even close. Now, this season, there is a conversation to be had. Should Nikola Jokic win his third MVP? I actually think I need to reiterate, not just third MVP, third straight MVP. Now, statistically, there's definitely an argument, and the fact of the matter is the Denver Nuggets are actually first in the West, and that was the biggest argument for why he shouldn't win it. So if you're Nikola Jokic, well then congratulations. As of right now, up to this point, you've done everything you can. There is no excuse why Jokic should not win his MVP. However, I think there's someone that deserves it more. And while I don't want to make this an MVP case video because I've done some of those already, and I'm probably going to do more in the past, I want to use the MVP as an example. When you hear about the MVP conversation this season, a couple names do come to light. Of course, Nikola Jokic being one of them. There's also guys like Jason Tatum, Luka Doncic, and hell, even Kevin Durant. Yet, I've heard little to nothing about Joel Embiid, and I don't know why. Because it's definitely not his stats. As of right now, Joel Embiid is averaging the most points in the NBA right now. And it's not like he's inefficient. He's having one of the best field goal percentages in the NBA. Oh, and the 76ers are second in the Eastern Conference, where it is very competitive right now. However, that could definitely change because the Celtics are on a 3-game losing streak, while the Sixers are on a 6-game winning streak. The point that I'm trying to make is that Joel Embiid needs to be talked about, but yet not a lot of people are doing that. This man is having one of the quietest 33-10 seasons I've seen in a while. Actually, that's a lie. I haven't seen a 33-10 season not be talked about like this. Now, there is a dialogue about Joel Embiid that I'm not gonna lie is kind of annoying me, and that is the free throw merchant allegations, which do have some validity to it. Yet, I need to give some context. First off, Joel Embiid is not even first in the NBA when it comes to free throw averages per game. That title would go to Giannis, and the gap is pretty far. And I have never in my life heard one person call Giannis a free throw merchant. Other players on the top 5, like Luka and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I've never heard that before. And if we're going off the top 10, guys like Ja Morant and Tatum and Dame, I've never heard anyone say that about them. Yet Joel Embiid gets labeled as a free throw merchant, like that's all he can do. But let's not act like this man isn't unstoppable in the paint and isn't one of the hardest players to guard. Joel Embiid is a part of a new era, and I don't know how new we're gonna call this, but it's called the center that can do everything. There is not one skill that Joel Embiid does not have. He can shoot threes, he's great in the post, he's a great mid-range shooter, he can get rebounds, hell, he can even pass when he needs to, he has pretty good ball control. I think something sad that I've come to realize is that Joel Embiid is more than likely not going to make the All-NBA team as well, because there is a weird conversation going on about positionless basketball, which is why I was very confused why Joel Embiid was not on the All-Star starter team, because he's a center and there was like no centers on the East. I mean, in this hypothetical situation, who's gonna play center? Giannis could probably play center, but is it ideal? Now that I think about it, he's more than likely gonna have to be the center of that team. But still, putting 3 forwards in just seems kind of weird. Now, luckily for Nikola Jokic, the West doesn't really have that problems because they don't have have that many power forwards. And if somehow all the power forwards plus Giannis are on a team, that's gonna be a weird conversation. Now, going back to the All-NBA team, I don't know if Embiid's gonna make that, especially because of this weird position rule. Now, do I think Jokic should make it over Embiid? Absolutely, because I think Jokic is a top 3 player in the NBA. But all I'm gonna say is that the gap from Jokic and Embiid skill-wise is not that far away. The only thing I would say I would give the edge over is probably Jokic's playmaking skills as a whole, because he's by far a better playmaker. But then again, I can name like 25 point guards that Jokic is a better playmaker than. Now, the question I have is, why is Embiid so disrespected as a player? Because it seems like this man is so underappreciated for everything that he does. Now, there is a couple possibilities, and one of it being we just have a lot of talent. As NBA fans, we are spoiled with the amount of talent that we currently have in the league. Like 10 to 15 years ago, the top 5 player conversation wasn't that hard. In fact, if we go by eras, we can see those eras were controlled by certain players, not in plural, but player. The 70s were Kareem, the 80s were Magic, the 90s were Jordan. Even in the early 2000s, I'm going with Kobe. Yet somewhere in the 2010 era, something got switched. It was no longer one player controls that era, it was multiple players. You could say Curry, you could say KD or Bron. There are multiple examples. And sure, that was a talented decade, but it's not getting easier. Because turning to the 2020 era, I would say that as of right now, it's Giannis, and it has been for the past 2 years. In my personal opinion, the day Giannis won an NBA title solidified just that. But yet, there are so many talented players in the NBA, I don't know how long I can keep saying this confidently. The NBA MVP conversation is not one player, it's fucking 5 to 10. There used to be a rule that there was only like 7 superstars, but I think we're approaching now 10 or more. So what is my point exactly? Well, there's so much talent in the NBA. And the unfortunate reality is that most people are going to get overlooked, and that's where Joel Embiid comes in. And then when we're ranking how good these players are, they get disrespected. Could you imagine if Embiid ends the season averaging like 35 and 10? The Sixers end as the 1st or 2nd seed in the Eastern Conference, but yet not only was he not an all-star starter, he wasn't an all-NBA player, and he wasn't in the MVP conversation. What the f? What kind of situation is Embiid in where he can have this amazing season and no credit? In fact, this could be the first time you're hearing how good Embiid is doing. I'm not seeing anyone talk about the Sixers being contenders, let alone Embiid doing this well. Trust me, you're gonna know how many games LeBron James is away from breaking the scoring record, and you're gonna fucking like it. Now, I think I can build a case on why I think Embiid should be the MVP. It wouldn't be that hard to do, and to see my case for Joel Embiid winning the MVP, click the video right here. And as always, Shaq, you're a fucking casual.